With the release of Vivo's X90 Pro Plus, they just set the standard, raised the bar for basically all of the up-and-coming phones for 2023 when it comes to Android flagships, because they've really just topped everyone else. This thing is just blowing them all out of the water. So the X90 Pro Plus is a release that I hope is going to be global. Right now, it's just China only. But why is it getting so much hype? Well, it's a phone that just ticks all boxes. We've got a 1-inch sensor, 3.5 times optical camera. It can shoot 8K 30. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. It has some seriously good cooling, crazy performance, UFS 4.0 spec storage now, the faster RAM. And it's a phone that I just think leading up and even going well into 2023, I think this is going to be a leader for some time. And let's find out why in my review in depth, a little long here, of the Vivo X90 Pro Plus. Our charger that's included is 80 watts. Now officially they say it is going to be 33 minutes to charge the 4,700 milliamp hour battery. But in my test, it's always under 40 minutes, just under 40. So around 38 minutes, 39 minutes, which is not bad at all. It's still very quick, the charging speed. SIM tray tool, our Type-C to Type-C cable, which is rather long. And yes, they do give us a case. Now this case is very minimalistic because there is no protection on the sides of it. So it's simply just the top and the bottom that's offering the protection, and around the camera module, which is very large. And it has that same fake synthetic leather back to it. So this phone does have a 6.7-inch screen. The size of it is a normal kind of flagship size nowadays. You can see compared to the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. Very similar, the look of them. Well, a little bit. A large camera module. Not as large as the Xiaomi's, but we do have that synthetic fake leather style on the back, which I kind of like because it gives it a little bit of grip there. I don't really know why they put this band along the back of it. We do have the Zeiss branding, of course, because they're using their optics, the T-Star coating, which is really good for just cutting down on reflections and especially that lens flare effect. And here it is compared to an S22 Ultra, which is slightly larger, as you can see there, more squared off this one. So a little bit more comfortable in your pocket maybe than say the S22 Ultra. However, the camera module it's quite thick. It sticks out a lot. You can see here on the side. Now, the thickness of this phone, chunky. It's 9.7 millimeters, but that's not including this module. If you include that module, then it brings it up to about 14 millimeters or so. It is, yeah, rather huge. Just like the Xiaomi's, as you can see, both of them do protrude there a lot. Now the frame around the outside, very good build to it. It's made out of metal power button and volume button right there. And it is in a good location. It's easy to access. So you don't have to like move your thumb up or your hand up or whatever to get access to those buttons, which is good. So the material on the back there, I think if you're going to get this style, you want to go for a darker color at least, because a lighter color, I do tend to see with the synthetic leather that on the edges, if you put it in your pocket without a case, it wears and ends up showing little marks and colors after a while. So we do have some flashes right here, dual tone LED flash there, and the cameras here. So it is a very busy camera module. There's a microphone here, there's laser assist autofocus. So this is our periscopic camera, 64 megapixels, 3.5 times optical. And we've got then the main 50 megapixel sensor, which I believe is this one right here. It certainly looks like it looking at the lens. So it's a f1.8 aperture, slightly brighter than the Xiaomi's, which is f1.9. And of course, it's 50 megapixels, that same 1-inch sensor. This here is the ultra wide, and then we have a 2 times optical camera. Interesting choice there. Now, the 2 times optical, that does have optical image stabilization. It does have autofocus. Some people are telling me it doesn't, but it does. I've seen it focus at certain points there. And the ultra wide, that is a 48 megapixel sensor. And of course, it all has the Zeiss optics, as mentioned, with the T-Star coating. The build and the design of it does remind me a little bit like the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. That's why I've got it here again, because look at the top. We've got almost the same kind of setup here, but it does state there professional photography. There's no Harman Kardon branding like with the Xiaomi. We've got a microphone IR transmitter at the top and this little plastic strip. It's still the metal frame at the top of it. And then down the bottom, this is where they look almost identical here with the setup. So we've got our loudspeaker here, microphone, and the SIM tray, which takes 2 nano SIMs, no micro SD card support, no 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, yada, yada, yada. Broken record, yes, those are missing. But this is at least USB 3.1, so video out, it clones. And we do have the fast transfers, unlike the Xiaomi, which is limited to USB 2 speeds. So this phone's got a great screen in it. It is, of course, an AMOLED screen, and it's 6.78 inches. Touch response, excellent. I have not had any issues with it at all. What about banding and flicker? Now, right now on camera, you can sometimes see a little bit of banding right now happening. Now, if you use it in direct sunlight, because it does have a peak of 1800 nits, I've only been able to measure indoors with my equipment about 880 nits, it's super bright, and you can make out the screen just fine. Now, the banding you're seeing right now, it's not like that in person. It's just that clip there, the camera that I was using, the shutter rate, it's just out of sync there with the screen. Now, if you're very sensitive to DC dimming, you'll see that there is actually no option in here. So when you go into display, there is no anti-flicker mode. There is no DC dimming mode right here. We've got a lot of adjustments in here. So the resolution, you can change that, of course. You can change the refresh rate. You can put it on smart switch, 60 Hertz or 120. Like right now, you can see a bit of banding, but in person, I don't see this. I don't see any banding at all. So it seems the frequency they're using, pulse width modulation, used to control the brightness, it isn't, at least that I can detect, isn't affecting my eyes. I can't see any flicker at all, but I still wish there was a DC dimming option, and it would certainly remove that altogether, even on camera. So we've got typical options here, of course, of the font size, display size, screen colors, and the resolution right here. So I recommend running whatever you want, okay, of course. So 1080p is better for battery saving, or 1440p is what you're paying for, which I like to run, the spec that you get. So you can see it slightly sharper when you, of course, you're using that. And then we have our color modes and all that right in here, which you can adjust. They even have the Zeiss natural color mode, which is really great, a good option to have, which we've got this filter too with the camera settings, which I'll show you later. At the time of me publishing this video, there is no global release of the X90 Pro Plus, so this is why I bought this version from Trading Shenzhen so I can cover it. And I really do hope, crossing fingers here, that Vivo will give this one, this time around, a global release. Normally they just go as far as the Pro versions, that's it. And it's just a Chinese exclusive only, which is a real shame considering it's got the powerhouse with the cameras and everything with it. So it's OriginOS here instead of FunTouch OS. It's very, very similar, but we, of course, get more Chinese customization. There's more bloatware. There's quite a few things in there that you need to remove and disable. Some minor annoyances, like if I swipe here, we're going to get some of these things sometimes that'll come up. You can see some of the apps still there. Yeah, there we go, featured content coming up. That is in Chinese. Now you can go along and end up removing some of these things and get rid of some of that, but just scrolling there, you can see there's still a bit there, but I need to work on it a little more. You can get rid of pretty much all of it. Now, one thing that does pop up a lot is, are we getting notifications with the OriginOS? Well, you have to do this. You've got to go into the battery settings. So I'll just show you here. So in battery, you want to go into power management and find the apps that you need to get those notifications on. For example, WhatsApp. Then you need to set it to high background power usage. So what this is essentially doing is stopping the task manager, RAM management, battery saving from killing these. If you don't enable this, then you'll find that after a while, you're not getting the messages and you need to load the app again in order to get the notifications to come through, which is kind of annoying, but that's the workaround. There's a fix for it. There's other things you can do as well, tweaks to remove some of the extra bloatware that just trying to uninstall it now, you can't. But there are ways around that. Trading Shenzhen does actually have a video for Vivo to customize and get the maximum out of it. All up, the UI here is very fast, and I've got 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is ample with the new chipset. I don't see any slowdown, especially with the UFS 4.0 now, which is super quick. Vivo, for me, haven't been amazing when it comes to firmware updates, but I'm happy to see this, that at least out of the box, there is a bunch of fixes that we do get. So straight out, you're going to have this firmware to download, which is all right. This is with the OriginOS here, of course. And now the other thing is a free available space. Remember, it's not expandable, no micro SD card support. You get 226 gigabytes on first boot, so that's it. So make sure you buy the model that's going to suit your storage needs. You may need to get the 512 gigabyte version. And here it does warn you about 5G not being available in your area because you're not in mainland China. However, for me, it's not actually been an issue at all. And yes, Google Play Store, you just need to install the APK file and it works. And you can see right here, I've got 5G So that was good to see. I was a little bit worried about it, but it seems it's got the global modem in it, and it's going to get onto all of those. And it does support LT band 20. Now, the internal storage is UFS 4.0. It is incredibly quick. So look at this. This is as fast as Ultrabooks, gaming laptops, PCIe 3.0 SSDs get these kind of speeds. So that's amazing, really good from UFS 4.0. Another big change here is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is no slouch. It is a monster. It is a big step up from the previous generation. We're looking around somewhere about approximately 25% faster. Not just the GPU, but that's where the big increase is with the Adreno 740. CPU's up, memory speed's another big boost there, and UI speeds here according to Antutu. So the previous models were getting around 1 million points, so that's why we're now almost, well, about 25% or so faster, even higher. So this, I think, is the new world record. It's the fastest phone now that I've seen. And you see here that it does support Saftynet too as well, which is good. If you're going to be using banking applications, you've got that support. And Camera 2 API support, so Gcam, Open Camera, other camera applications do have full access to the cameras, which is good. And this is an amazing result here. So Wildlife's extreme throttling test. I've never seen a score this high before, and it only throttled down 7%. That's absolutely amazing. If you take into account that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 iQOO11 that I reviewed with the same chipset, same faster RAM, it throttled about 35%. This here only throttles 7%. So the cooling, Vivo has done an excellent job with this one. I believe it's got the dual thermal transfer pipes in there, which is good. And you'll see battery runtime. Okay, there's a bit of a catch with this one here. I ran it with the smart resolution and refresh rate. Okay, so it's not running always at 120 hertz. It went for an incredible time here. I did not expect this out of a 4,700 milliamp hour battery. So real world, that's about 8 or 9 hours of on-screen time. Now, if you do force it to 1440p and you force 120 hertz all the time, realistically, you're scraping about 7 hours of on-screen time. It's not amazing, but it's okay considering that's a demanding resolution and refresh rate. Charging time, well, this didn't record it correctly here. For some reason, it glitched out on me, but it's around about 37 minutes or so, which is very quick for this size of battery. Sure, it's not as fast as the 120 watt charging phones that do it in like 20 minutes, but it's still really good. No complaints from me. So the cameras in this phone do not disappoint. For me, it's one of the top three, alongside the Mate 50 Pro from Huawei and the Pixel 7 Pro. So just show you the camera app here, because I know there's been a lot of questions about some various options we get. So I wanted to first point out some of the shortfalls of the camera system here, because it's not 100% perfect as you'd hope it would be. So front-facing 32 megapixel camera, you only get 1080p 30 or 60, no 4K. It's a bit of a joke. By default, the electronic image stabilization is not even on. You need to enable that. Otherwise, it will be all shaky. So they call it steady face. Now, if you go over to the main rear cameras, you can shoot Dolby Vision. And if you use 4K 30, you can start recording, all right? And you can then pull back, use the ultra wide. You can then go over to the 2x camera. Yes, it does have focus. Up to the 3.5 times camera. You do see it swap over when you're shooting on the go. So it's a bit like an iPhone. However, what isn't like an iPhone is this. So if you use the 4K 60 option, hit record, you've got 3.5 times max digital zoom. And then can you go over and use the other cameras on the go? You can't. That is a bit of annoyance there. Now we do have this. So we've got 8K option now. And this is a proper native 8K at 30 frames per second, not 24. And it does not seem to have a recording limit on it, probably due to the really good cooling. I've tested it for quite a few minutes and I don't think it seems to have a limit on it. So that's great. Now, Pro Mode. There's also been a lot of questions about that. So Pro Mode is very good. You can see all the cameras, shutter rate, white balance, your focus, ISO. That is all there as you'd expect it to be. You've got the Zeiss option. So if you want natural colors and pretty much as closer to true to life that you can get on a phone, it's very good actually. I found it to be about a good 9 out of 10 times it'll get the colors spot on. Sometimes it doesn't. It's not perfect, but it's good. Now, if you've got it disabled, you get more saturated, more social media friendly kind of photos that people like. They pop a little more with saturation. So we have Super RAW, that's 14-bit. RAW, which is 10-bit. And Pro Mode does work in video. There we go, but we've only got the log option. So that's good for color grading, but there is like no RAW video, Pro video mode, like ProRes equivalent. Unfortunately not. So front-facing camera, 32 megapixels, but it only shoots 1080p 30 or 60 frames per second, which is really disappointing. I mean, a flagship phone like this really does need to have at least 4K 30 and 4K 60 would be a good option. Now, electronic image stabilization is not on by default. You actually have to enable it, and it's called a steady phase, so it does crop in a little bit. Right now you can see it is quite smooth here. Audio quality seems to be fine, but the bitrate is only 128 kilobits per second. Rear cameras now, so our 1-inch sensor, 50 megapixels, well, it's just a fraction over 50, and you've seen it before in the 12S Ultra, and it is also now in the Xiaomi 13 Pro. So it's a good sensor. It's got optical image stabilization and electronic here. I'm very steady as I walk along, looking good. Now I can pull back and go over to the ultra-wide camera. This is 48 megapixels. And then I can apply a little bit of zoom here. This is up to 2 times. You see it swap over now to the 2 times camera. And still very steady. And I can apply here even further zoom. So this is now up to 5. That's actually 4.1, sorry, times zoom. It wouldn't really go over that. Probably wouldn't actually go over about 3.5. You can see it swapping over the cameras right there. Now back to the ultra-wide camera. So just do a short jog ahead to test out that stabilization. Seems to be very good here. And we can shoot in 8K, so it's 8K 30 frames per second, so not the choppy 24 we did have previously with some of their other phones. The only thing is it does not have any electronic image stabilization, so it's just relying solely on the optical image stabilization, which is okay if you're not moving about too much, but you probably want to use a gimbal. You see as I walk ahead now, shaking around, and I'm trying to do my best here to keep it steady. So that's why if you are going to use 8K 30 frames per second, yes, get yourself a gimbal. So just apply a little bit of digital zoom here, that is 2.1. Still looks reasonably good, but I wouldn't really go over about 2 times digital zoom. As for still performance, we are looking at definitely one of the top 3 smartphone camera setups when it comes to flagships. So I did a camera comparison because I wanted to know just how would it compete with the competition. So 2 more expensive but popular phones, the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Right now, this example that I'm showing you, it bettered those 2. The HDR performance, low light performance tended to be better, especially when it came to color reproduction. With the Zeiss natural option enabled, it was pretty much spot on exactly how I saw it, which is very rare with a lot of phones. If you're someone that wants the more natural looking colors, you get it with this phone, and you get an amazing set of cameras. So the ultra wide is very good, the zoom camera is also good, and it pretty much covers all bases. I think it's almost the best, and I want to find out later on if it can beat the Mate 50 Pro, maybe the Pixel 7 Pro, and the Xiaomi 13 Pro, which I'm also waiting for with the same exact 1-inch main sensor. It's only the video performance that I found out in this camera comparison where it does fall behind, for example, an iPhone 14 Pro, but it definitely beats it with the still performance. So check out that camera comparison for more, and just to give you an idea of how it competes with popular phones. Now, the gaming performance on this phone has been absolutely rock solid. I'm not experiencing any lag whatsoever thanks to the cooling in this. So Vivo has done their homework. Unlike, you could say, other manufacturers that let their phones overheat, boot you out of the game from overheating. It's not going to happen here. So Genshin Impact runs at a solid 60 frames per second on the highest visual setting there. And that is really good. So even after playing for an hour, you play for 30 minutes, you're not going to experience any lag whatsoever. It only throttles, just like I saw with 3D Mark, about 7%. That's it. It throttles down 7%, and it really is an awesome gaming experience with this phone. It's probably one of the best that I've seen to date. One of the smoothest, the fastest, just crazy powerful, this particular phone here. Audio quality with the X90 Pro Plus. So you can use a Type-C to 3.5mm adapter. That's one workaround for people still using their trusty old headphones and all their 3.5mm tech there. Or, of course, you got Bluetooth options. And these are really good. I review now a lot of TWS audio tech, and some of them, I don't miss 3.5mm anymore as much as I used to. So call quality sounds like any other flagship. I would say it's pretty much like this. Sounds just like an S22 Ultra or like an iPhone. Really no issues at all with the calls. So it's still a phone after all. And what about the loudspeakers? So there's no branding behind them. There's no hardened cardon speakers or anything like that. They're all right. They're good volume to them, a little hint of bass in there, and overall, no real complaints. They're standard kind of speakers. They're nothing exceptional. So they come out the bottom, the sound comes out here, and then a bit out the earpiece. So it seems to be about 60% out of here and around 40% from the earpiece. So here is a sample as per normal at 100% volume. Recapping here really quickly because the video's gone on for quite some time now. This is an impressive phone, no doubt about it. The cameras are really good. Now, I'd rate this as being one of the top 3 alongside the Mate 50 Pro or the Pixel 7 Pro. Video performance is the only area that it really lets itself down. It could be really good thanks to the V2 chip and low light performance too as well, but it has panning judder, poor audio bitrate, only 128 kilobits per second. 4K 60 doesn't support swapping over between all the different cameras where other flagships do. And the front-facing camera, it's only 1080p when it comes to vlog performance. Now, for a lot of people, that's not actually going to be an issue. And it doesn't just stop there with the cameras. Cooling performance in this, very good. Only throttling down 7% in the Wildlife Extreme thermal throttling test. That's amazing. You don't normally see that with passively cooled and super powerful phones like this. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is a huge step up. Now, I'm not one of the guys that were flown out, unfortunately, to Hawaii for a week. I would have loved to have been, but this is just me. So this is not Qualcomm sponsored or anything like that. It is actually a very good chip, a big step up from the previous gens. And the charge time, the fingerprint reader, let me just demonstrate that again, that this in-screen fingerprint reader is probably one of the best out there. It just works 10 out of 10 times. Solid offering from Vivo. It's really the operating system for some that may put you off. OriginOS. So I do hope we're going to see a FunTouch OS global release of this. And Vivo, if you're watching this video, if you do watch my videos, please, global release. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see this phone come out here, not just in China, but in Europe, the rest of the world. Make it happen. And thanks a lot for watching my video here on the X90 Pro Plus from Vivo.